Uh, and I always thought that was a cushy, easy job. I don't. Apparently not.
Not based on the chairs I'm sitting. I need a bigger sofa.
Touche. Thank you very much, Pendra. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mario DiNatale, Deputy Mayor in Voorhees Township. He's also a partner at DiNatale Investments, LLC. He founded a business some time ago called Diversifax and is now a publicly traded company. And his DiNatale investments involve investing in residential apartment properties. Interestingly enough, Mario's co-founded the nonprofit Alicia Rose Victorious Foundation, which has installed over 98 teen centers in children's hospitals around the country, which is truly wonderful and obviously speaks to a man who cares about other people. So, Honorable Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. First, let me say I'm not only honored, but I'm humbled to be actually on this seat with this panel here. Former Governor Flory, you continue to amaze me, your ability to recognize problems here, concerns here in New Jersey, and be able to articulate the solutions to those. It's really an attribute to why you have had such a successful career. Thank you so much. And then the rest, Senator, wherever you're at, I guess virtual somewhere in the air here. Thank you, Bob, for heading this up, as well as Commissioner here from the BPU. I quite honestly don't know why I'm here. I'm just a lonely deputy mayor from a small town, Voorhees. We're about 31,000 people or so. So I also have a disclaimer, unlike the other ones you've heard. If I seem a little groggy, there may be a reason for it. I just recently had bilateral knee replacement, so if I do seem a little groggy, probably because I am. So with that being said, I guess what I'm offering here is I am too really impressed with the turnout. I had no idea it was going to be like this, and I'm very impressed, and I'm very happy that Voorhees has taken an active role in being one of the leaders and looking at this piece as an opportunity to provide some economic growth for and actually some tax relief, not necessarily tax relief, I guess, but operating relief to our businesses in Voorhees by offering this type of PACE program, off-balance sheet financing for some businesses in our town. So I guess I'm here as actually a proof source for, I think there's a lot of developers out there, possibly contractors that have interest in selling to townships like mine. So I'm here to tell you that we are actively looking at this program and think it's an excellent, I agree with the rest of the panel, an excellent way to be able to provide New Jersey businesses with other avenues of off-balance sheet financing that is really necessary to be able to offer while providing sustainable energy through green initiatives. I think it's a perfect marriage, really, for all the above. So I really don't have a lot of other than that to say, other than I'm here to let you know that Voorhees is very actively looking at this, and we'll do whatever we can to make sure that we sound off, that the state and legislators. I happen to be pretty close to a lot of senators and legislators as well in New Jersey, and I made it my point to make sure that they understood how important it is, and they both happen to live in Voorhees as well, how important it is to us as local elected officials, how we try to help our taxpayers become successful in our towns. So that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mario. We're going to have a few questions, so start thinking about the questions you would like. And if it's a question specifically for Bob, I promise that I'm going to try to remember the question and then read it back to Bob over this special cell phone I have here. While you're thinking of your questions, I want to answer a question that was asked a panel ago, okay? It's not done frequently. There was a gentleman over here, I think he's still here, who from Sussex County, that beautiful county where the sun always shines. And it was a question about how do we handle dealing with PACE versus the Morris model. The Morris model was named after Morris County, and Morris County sort of led the parade on putting together a public-private financing model. I think people have gone actually a little bit hard on it. It has some flaws, everything does, and it was the first out of the box, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, could be some blowback. But in answer directly to your question, which was how do we differentiate PACE from that unhappy experience, the answer is, and some of the panelists before touched on it, that PACE is about private money basically going to private property. You didn't hear the word public in that sentence, right? Private money. Whether you buy a bond or not doesn't matter because the bonds are not going to be backed by a government. So there's no governmental credit or governmental money going into this. And in fact, in the amendment that's has made its way through, it's just about to be finalized, the amendment says that any PACE money is not public money. It cannot be co-mixed. It cannot be used by the town. The town is basically acting as a postman, collecting money and sending it off. That's it. It can't stay there. It can't do anything for the town. It can't help the town. It can't hurt the town. The town is operating as a postman. So if you can get that model in your mind, it really differentiates us from what was going on with the Morris model. Much, much more complex. And it involved public entities, it involved public credit, it involved all of that good stuff. But it's a totally different program, and that's important for this group to understand. And the other thing I want to say to that is that was the first question, and I don't know, Jonathan can correct me, but I think that was the first, or Victoria, I think that's the first question we've ever received is about what's the difference between the Morris model and PACE. Is that not true? That's true. So somehow we've dodged that bullet so far until you've come along. But thank you. I can imagine, and I'm just kidding, of course. I thank you for raising that issue. Now that's given everybody a little bit of time to think about their questions for our honorable panel. Can I see a hand? There's a man in the blue shirt.
Thank you. And actually, your comments in response to the previous question lead me well into my question. My name is Tony O'Donnell. I'm an economist. I work for Sustainable Jersey. And I first want to congratulate. This has been a wonderful whole day of learning and relearning things. So the two big takeaways that were reinforced for me with regard to the concept of PACE is one is that the idea of spreading out cost over time, a longer time horizon that was mentioned earlier this morning, so that we can do deeper energy retrofits, not just lighting. Lighting's important, but we can perhaps, if we spread out the time horizon to as far as 20 years, can finance more deeper things. The second, and is what Gus just talked about, is that the costs here are borne by private entities through basically a market mechanism. So we're talking about the contractors, the energy service companies, and the building owners entering into a contract. Now it's facilitated by this new idea of PACE that we will be able to create a mechanism where the payback can be through property tax assessments. So as an economist, it's particularly attractive to me that costs that are paid back over time by the people that actually use the energy. So the fact that it attaches to the property, if I sell my home and the person that comes behind me is a heavier user of energy, then you're paying back, the people that actually use it are paying back. The other thing that goes to what Commissioner Chivukula said is that there are very interesting opportunities going forward I think there's opportunities for tremendous complement between the existing clean energy program, energy efficiency programs, like you mentioned, direct install and pay for performance. So with that as a background, and my question is interesting because I'll say that previously in my career I was the economist for the Pinelands Commission in 2004 to 2010. And it occurs to me that the Pinelands Commission, when they had some similar issues when they first started, and we're fortunate to have Governor Florio, who's the sponsor of that legislation. So the main issue was how do we focus development into proper areas? And a new theoretical idea was this transfer of development rights that had never been done before. And so a theoretical model came up. We'll split out the development potential, and we'll be able to focus growth into proper areas. So that facilitated development and respecting this new plan. It had the added feature that addressed equity issues, so people whose land now was not able to be developed.
Can I just interrupt? We do need a question.
We're able to get compensated for that. And like this, PACE, it was a private market mechanism. Having said that, Governor Florio can confirm that it didn't take off right away. It took some time. It is very successful now. So my question is, on the aspect of the mechanism, so we'll have 565 municipalities doing the PACE mechanism. They have different levels of sophistication and personal resources. Could the panelists, no specific panelists, could you talk to what is the best way to get through, having learned things that we've learned, not just through the Pinelands, but through other states that have done PACE? Can you address those issues of how we can make it as a smooth a transition so that we can, this very good idea of attaching to property assessments won't suffer from implementation issues?
Life is marketed.
It's true. It's true.
Lifting the level of attention to people, lifting the level of awareness. This is a good start. I mean, getting out the word, because there's no negatives against it. Secure, good, enhancing the value of the property. I mean, there's nothing to say against it. But the fact of the matter is people are doing a whole lot of things. You have to reach out to affinity groups, reach out to professional groups, and then for political people, legislators who are running, talk about it affirmatively. It's something good to be associated with, plus, win, win, win.
That's where we are. That's very true. I think marketing is the big chunk. We have about 24 towns that we've already spoken to. Some are huge, some are teeny, and the response has been almost uniformly very positive. So the challenge there, I think, Governor, is going to be in getting the ordinance introduced. I mean, the mechanics. Frankly, there's no philosophical opposition to this program. It's in the devil is in the details as usual. I don't know, anything else?
I think one of the things we need to look at is education. A lot of times people are looking at energy as something, you flip a switch and they get the energy. I think increasing the awareness and talking about the fossil sources of energy and how we can make use of the renewable sources, how we can empower the residents of the state of New Jersey to be engaged in this process. They can be a part ownership of this movement towards a greater renewable energy policy. I think that's also will help. I think once the people are educated, they can go to their lawmakers and say, look, we'd like to have some program like this, and can you help us? I think that's also necessary.
And I'll just add, from my point of view, this can't be a bipartisan, a partisan stumbling block. I know as an elected official in Voorhees, a lot of times things just, we see it all the time, not only in this state, but in the federal government. Everything gets bottlenecked because of politics. And that can't happen here. I think it's up to the legislators here and the senator and assemblymen to make sure that they push this thing through and make sure we explain it to the governor so it gets bipartisan approval. That's the first step. I think it's a no-brainer as far as how it benefits everyone. As you mentioned, Gus, philosophically, how can you be against something like this? I think it's just, I hope it's not one of those political powder kegs that typically you see happen in legislation. I hope we can just get through that. And maybe with your help, if you guys are all from New Jersey, you can make sure that your legislator, your leaders, and your districts all understand how important it is to you to make sure they vote yes for it.
Thank you. Surely, please do.
The gist I thought of the questionnaire question was, is there going to be pushback, or how do we sell this to the municipal government? Legislation provides that the municipalities are not going to incur a cost. If they're in the values go up because homes that are energy efficient or which have renewables attached to them are worth more money. So at the end of the day, they get a higher assessment on property because the resale will be at a higher value. And municipalities are not, they have not experienced it. But for many, many years, towns would do local assessments for curbs and gutters. And it just like paint, with the cost of the curb gutter would be amortized over, in effect, 10 years, 40 tax payments. And they would collect that little bit with every tax bill. So this is not really a program that's all that foreign to what municipalities are looking for. And as Governor Florida said, when you have a really good idea whose time has come, it's going to flourish.
Thank you, Senator. Bob Hunters just wants to throw in 2 cents from Connecticut.
Bert, yeah. that's
Bert,
okay.
I'm sorry, Bert.
That's okay. I heard the comments going around, and I think it's a good question about whether the individual municipalities will be able to make this lift in some coordinated way. The way it works in Connecticut, the Green Bank is the statewide administrator. So we coordinate the program for the entire state. The municipalities are the collectors. They put the benefit assessment lien on the property. They act as the collection mechanism, as Gus said. So if it's possible, I suggest you give some consideration to a statewide administrator. I might be talking against the political winds here that are blowing, but I think that the big counties will have no problem, implementing this. I think it's just maybe the smaller municipalities will have difficulty. And I think the other thing, though, is you'll find that if you have uniformity in application of forms and intake processes and things like that, that your program will really scale quickly. You'll attract a lot of money from Wall Street, and it'll just get off the ground a lot more quickly. When we started our program, we thought that the lenders would just come and walk into our program. It was crickets out there for a while. So we had to actually, move things along ourselves. So just from the voice of experience and what we went through, maybe take a look at some of the pitfalls that we had when we started up, and it might help out.
Great. And thank you.
To just respond to that, regionalization makes sense. Many of the counties are thinking about this. They have something called a county improvement authority, and that is being used. On a statewide basis, I don't think currently the philosophy that's existing is going to be conducive to county and statewide things.
That was very diplomatic, Governor. You must have been elected to something. We have one more question there, and the man in the blue shirt standing up.
Hello.
Oh, you're going to...
Okay, quick question.
Please.
I love this. I'm so pleased that all these people are here. I'm Rezwan Razani with Footprint to Wings. Our goal is a net zero carbon economy. So I want to see how much can this scale, and what incentives would be required to make it scale? And what I'm thinking about is what you were saying about the price of natural gas. Like there are some limits to how, the SIR ratio being greater than 1. What would, for example, a carbon price or carbon fee do to hurt or help this process? And would you be able to put, for example, in a dashboard when you're tracking the pace things, what impact a carbon price would have on it?
Does anybody want to take a shot at that? I think it was a general question about the cost of energy and what could really assist a PACE program, not just ours, I'm guessing, but what could assist PACE programs in catching fire. I have a thought on that, but if anybody else wants to jump in. Was that the question, in fact?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much? Okay. Let me take a shot at that. I'm going to get this wrong, but it'll be interesting. There really are two different energy cycles. This thing called oil doesn't really, certain countries it does, but in America, oil really doesn't have much to do with the generation of electricity, generally. Our electricity is produced by coal, which is really bad. Gas is sort of bad, even the clean gas. Fracking gas is horrendously bad, but nobody's told you that yet. So I'm the first one. I'm the first one. There's nothing worse you can do to a piece of land than to frack it. True. And you ought to see North Dakota. It's enough to make you cry. So there's a whole cycle of energy consumption, which we generally refer to as transportation energy, which would be the oil, boys and girls, and the gas stuff, and all of that has a life of its own over there. Not much of that ever turns on a light bulb, and that's the business we're in. We're in the consumer, even large companies are consumers, and that's what drives PACE. So. What's going to make PACE take off? Well, you know, it's just intelligence and just people comparing. It's very hard not to get excited about a savings. Very hard. Everything we do, not everything, but 99% of what we do is going to be saving people money. That's not hard to sell once they understand what they have to do. So we think this thing is just about to take off. As Bert said, yeah, what about the crickets? Well, there's always going to be a year of crickets, pretty much in anything you roll out. We're ready for that. In fact, we've had some crickets. But as soon as people sit down and say, gee, I do this, and day one, I don't have to wait. It's not 3 years, it's not 10 years, it's not 7 years. Day one, I start saving money, which in the financial world means you're making money.
I mean, one of the things that people have understood is that alternative energy systems, solar, wind, biomass, all are very cheap to run operationally. It's the upfront capital for the facility that causes the difficulty. To the degree that we're facilitating upfront capital availability to install in your factory or your home, solar, wind. Wind is free. Sun is free. You just have to make sure you have the technology in the project facility there to make use of it. So to the degree that this is assisting people in having access to clean, available energy, that's a good thing.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No, I think once you have the energy efficiency portfolio standard and the contribution of NJ PACE towards that, and trying to see, depends on how many homes or businesses are going to be taking advantage of the NJ PACE and trying to reduce the carbon footprint. I think that's what's going to, it's going to take some time. It's not going to, carbon footprint is not going to just come down, but you have to, once you have the energy efficient buildings and energy efficient production of renewable energy, I think that is going to dictate how rapidly you're going to reduce the carbon footprint.
Thank you. Thank you, Pendra. That's it. Senator Bob, do you have anything you might wish to add? We're kind of wrapping this part up.
Only that I wish your membership, all the people that are attending here, will provide an extra legislative push, as was suggested by the mayor. Give your assembly people and your senators a call, and hopefully when we get this passed in the next 30 to 60 days, it'll be great to call the governor's office and say, this is the right thing to do, and hopefully get the governor to sign it as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bob. Have a great day. I hope everything works out in Syracuse.
Thanks.
Governor, thank you, Kendra, Mario. And now Jonathan is going to wrap us up.